Like my hemorrhoids, fad diets just won't seem to go away. And I want to show you how to create your own version of Preparation H so that way you can get rid of fad diets. And by doing that, I'm going to show you how easy it is to actually create a fad diet. To have a successful fad diet, we need to accomplish a few things. We need to have some kind of problems to solve. We need to have cherry-picked data that implies that it solves that problem. We need to have something to demonize, or someone. They need to have a catchy theme. We need to have rules that are loosely grounded in science with actual science sprinkled on top of bullshit. And then we really need to find out what the secret is, what they don't want you to know. So before we dive into that, who the fuck am I? My name is Jordan Yacklin. I am the head coach and owner of Phoenix Performance Coaching, where we empower gamers to reclaim their health, lose weight, and build the confidence to finally become the main character of their own lives. I've served over 500 clients, as well as many professional athletes and high school athletes and all sorts of stuff like that. I've lost over 60 pounds personally. At the time of recording, I'm lost about 62 pounds, and I'm still shooting for more. And I am cursed with being the forever DM. So diving in, we need to find out what problem to solve. I chose obesity because that is a big problem and it's a legit problem. So you can see by this data that obesity has risen since the mid 1970s. So I feel like this is a really good place to start. I'm just asking questions. I don't like how that's become a meme now because you really should be asking questions all the time. The problem is the people that say, "Oh, I'm just asking questions," are people who are asking questions and they don't like the quote unquote mainstream answer to those questions. And so they're arguing by saying, "Well, I'm just asking." It's like, "Well, we know the answer to that." "Well, I don't like that answer." "Well, then fuck off." Oh, in addition, we can also see that there was a decrease in obesity here. So we want to dive into that. This is really good data. Like the last slide is good data because we see the rise and we see data points. But this is really good data because if we go from here, obesity has risen over 800%. You can really use that type of data to kind of plug at the heartstrings of people. We want to capture their emotion first and remove the logic to really captivate them. And this is an example of bad data. BMI has increased. You see the trends the same as the other two slides, but we really can't pull any big emotion out of it because BMI is such a nebulous term, meaningless for a lot of people. Oh, obviously we want to cite all of our sources, but all of that data came from one particular place, so we need to make up stuff. So I threw in some random studies here. One of them is methods on training dogs. Just like when you're applying for a job, they're going to ask for sources, but they're never going to actually check them. So feel free to throw in whatever you want. And if you're like our sitting Secretary of HHS, you can just use AI to make the sources. So I mentioned this earlier. Clearly, we know something was working well between 1971 and 1974. What caused this decrease in obesity and what caused the spike in obesity? Turns out there was a global food shortage. So there was like a legitimate famine in the early 70s. So chances are we're probably not going to be talking a whole lot about that. But we do want to focus on the spike here. And with that, we found the demon. And like true charlatan fashion, we're using the classic Google AI overview to be a main source for us. So high fructose corn syrup was created in the early 60s, but it wasn't used until the mid 70s in food. And that perfectly matches our data for the spike in obesity. Now, is this a coincidence? Honestly, probably not. There probably was some correlation there. But what we do know is that high fructose corn syrup's consumption has significantly dropped since the early 2000s, but obesity hasn't. So we can know that that's not a true causation. But that's the type of data that we will lock our lips on and we won't talk about because we are going to demonize the shit out of high fructose corn syrup. So we need to set up some ground rules for this diet. And this is where the real finesse happens, if you will. You want to have a good combination of grounded, down to earth, legitimate advice sprinkled in with the secret sauce, if you will, which is the bullshit. So I asked myself, what did the normal diet look like in the early 70s? Eating 3 square meals a day, no real snacking, using foods that were only available pre-1973. See how this is kind of an homage to the paleo diet, but just on a much shorter time frame. Nothing labeled low fat, sugar free keto. We want all the fat. We want the high fats. We want the full fats. We want all the good stuff there. Always sit down to eat. In the 70s, people tended to eat as a family at the dinner table and have no screens, no distraction, no phones. Now, if you look at it, most of which, again, generally good advice. You want to have less distractions while eating. Eating with your family, eating with a community can be good there. Eating more whole foods, eating food at home, reducing snacking between meals. That's all generally good advice. Stay away from low-fat, sugar-free keto. Stay away from high fructose corn syrup. That's when we're sprinkling in a little bit of bullshit. Additional lifestyle practices, meals at home, like we already said, at set times. When I lived with my grandma, dinner was always at 7 o'clock, and having set times like that can actually be generally helpful. Smaller portions, again, fewer snacks, if any. Minimal dining out. Maximum casseroles, that is like the peak 70s food. Full fat dairy, white bread, canned veggies. Let's go for all that good stuff. Daily movement. A lot of times people were much more active in the 70s versus now. Again, not a bad advice. And cigarettes are completely optional. Cigarettes are an appetite suppressant. So if you are struggling with that, feel free to have a pack or two. So now we have the core structure of the diet. How can we monetize it? How can we package this in a way to actually gain money off our grift? The quickest and easiest way to package this up is to create an ebook. And in order to create an effective ebook, we need to have a catchy theme, an interesting name, and a few taglines to make it sound good. So we want to focus on the cover of this ebook. So as you can see, we created the 1973 diet, a simpler time, a leaner you. Rediscover the secrets, all caps, to the pre-obesity era. Now you can see a few taglines to make it sound more intriguing, to make it sound appealing. The 1973 diet, that name automatically sparks curiosity, makes you at least glance over the cover. Random bestseller sticker. This is the best-selling book I've ever had. Tasty meal, that it was definitely not made with AI. As much alphabet soup as we can muster behind my name, because we want to sound like a true authority in a catchy 70s theme that bring you back to a simpler time. It makes you wonder, was it easier back in the 70s when we didn't have all the social media, or is it easier now? Most people like to reminisce on nostalgia. Hi, editing Jordan here. I wanted to actually complete a small ebook to show how actually easy it is. And so all I went on ChatGPT, this was the same thread that I was using to create the cover, and it gave me a step-by-step guide on how to do that. There's the cover art there. And all I said was, let's use a format that I can copy over to Google Docs, turn into a PDF, and it'll allow me to edit it. And so it spat out all of this, telling me where to put page breaks in, table of context, gives me a title page, copyright page, and then it goes into 10 chapters, as you can see. And then all I did was I just copied it all into a Google Doc. It even has all of the proper tabs and headers and everything like that, where you can easily turn that into Canva and turn it into an ebook. But I wanted to stop here because, well, I actually make the full thing. But this took me literally 5 minutes, if that, to get all of this 21 pages of book content. Imagine if you spent, a whole day, a whole afternoon on it, making the format good, making sure you fleshed out some things, and just spending one afternoon on something that is just garbage, and then putting that out and then promoting it. And so again, this is just a testament to how easy this stuff actually is. So now that we have created the ebook, the cover looks beautiful, we can throw it on Amazon, self-publish. What do? We have to promote it. Joe Rogan would be a perfect place to promote this, because not only is he the biggest platform in the world, but he loves promoting bullshit just like this. So I'm going to work on getting on the Joe Rogan Experience. And remember, to be successful, we need to fear-monger the enemy, which is high fructose corn syrup. We need to pass the blame, because if we just tell people the answer is simple, just stick to the basics and move more and eat less, people are going to pass on that because they don't want the blame. The blame isn't on them. The blame is on the highly processed high fructose corn syrup that is hidden in your food. And remind them of the solution. The solution is the simpler time, the 1973 diet, where we eat just like our ancestors did 50 years ago. Now, living the charlatan life, living the grift, is not all sunshine and rainbows. Believe it or not, there are going to be people who want to use science to call you out on your shill or for being a charlatan. Now, we could be preemptive about this and come up with a plan on how to combat these people. First, we need to know what the actual data will be that they will use against us, so we can misconstrue or misrepresent the data, cherry pick data that is combative to the conventional data. There's studies that show cigarettes are healthy. And so what we try to do is have that mindset to cherry pick that data. We want to use big words to confuse the general audience to make us sound smarter. We want to straw man the other opponent. We want to discredit their funding. This one's big because more often than not, this can be pretty effective. Who funded the research that you were looking at? And then just ignore who funded our research that we cherry picked. So who funded your research? We can't trust big academia unless it is in our favor, and always try to straw man their point. Additionally, this one's big. Play the victim. Big pharma, big academia, they're trying to silence us. They are trying to censor us because they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to have the secrets that I have. Ancient Apocalypse, Graham Hancock is big on this. I have fallen down deep into the pseudo-archaeology rabbit hole, and Graham Hancock is huge for this. He gets on the biggest platform in the world and says that academia is censoring him, that he's being silenced by all these big institutions where he has a bigger name than all of them borderline combined. And if all else fails, if straw manning their point, cherry picking data, discrediting the funding of the science that they use to support, and playing the victim, if that all fails, we have ace up our sleeve, personal attacks. Ad hominems. It shifts the focus away from the argument and shifts the focus on the content of their character. Now, who are you to tell me what the science says when you can't even control your own health? You're overweight. You're obese. Blah, blah, blah. Come up, even it could be a stuff unrelated. You cheated on your wife in the 80s. It could be completely underrated. You shit your pants in the 90s. But anything we try to do to discredit their character. This kind of goes into my next point, but the general populace tends to not really care what the body of evidence suggests. What they really want is somebody to reinforce their opinions and pass the blame on somebody else. And if we can do that while discrediting the opposition, then we are winning this battle. Now, a few more key points. We have consumer ignorance on our side. People don't want to do their research. They are busy. Everybody has busy lives. They don't want to spend their free time trying to get an undergraduate degree in nutrition to figure out whether or not the 1973 diet is bullshit or not. They want a flashy quick fix that they don't have to think a whole lot about. That's where we come in. We must speak more confidently and louder than the opposition. People follow confident leaders. And we 100% must absolutely speak in absolutes. People hate the answer, quote unquote, it depends. Although that is normally the true answer for most questions around health and fitness, people hate that answer because it requires them to think. Just tell me what to do, keep it simple, and I will do it. Oh, and just make sure that it's not things that I've tried in the past, like healthier lifestyles, being more active, and eating less processed foods. It needs to be a quick fix. It needs to pass the blame on somebody else. And we 100% need to speak in absolutes because it provides more clarity to the audience. They know exactly what needs to be done because he said it absolutely. And it requires less thinking on their end. And it makes us seem more confident and more like an authority figure because we know the exact answer. Yes, you need to remove high fructose corn syrup from your diet. Yes, you need to 100% eat more casseroles, and you absolutely must smoke a pack a day. Now that we've built this empire on this ebook, we need to really capitalize more vertical integration, if you will. We can sell supplements. They put fluoride in our water that's turning the frogs gay or whatever. Now we need to come up with supplements and detoxes to complement the 1973 diet, to remove the toxins that are in your modern drinking water and the modern food that you just can't escape. Oh, microplastics, everything in the air, everything is toxic, and you and I can create these supplements to detox yourself from that. And the funny thing is, really, anybody can create a supplement. You can just shit in a bottle and put it on Amazon, and there's no real regulations for that. I don't recommend doing that, but there's very, very few regulations in the supplement industry to where a lot of people will put stuff like inactive ingredients like flour and stuff like that in capsules and sell them as supplements. I'm not a big fan of the supplement game. Clearly, you can see how easy it is to come up with just really utter bullshit. Here's how to strengthen your bullshit meter. Avoid people who claim to have the secrets. The conventional wisdom or mainstream academia doesn't want you to know this. They're being censored by big, insert name here, mainstream, insert name here. They're being censored if they're being silenced, if they know all the secrets, and they just can't let it all out besides this one ebook, then chances are 9 times out of 10, if not more, 10 times out of 10, they're a grift. They speak in absolutes, right? We 100% absolutely want to speak in absolutes to gain the public trust, to capture their attention because it requires less thinking on their end. and they will dodge actual debates. If you want a good example why most charlatans will dodge actual debates, obviously it's common sense on why they would, because they are built their foundation on a house of cards. If you want to see an actual reason why charlatans will not do debates with actual scientists and academics, watch the Flint Dibble Graham Hancock debate on Joe Rogan. Phenomenal debate. Flint absolutely bodied Graham Hancock for 3-4 hours, knocking every single point that Graham had out of the park. Graham came extremely underprepared and left with his dick in his hand, and it was a really good debate. To the point where Graham and Joe had teamed up many episodes since then and tried to defame Flint by saying he lied. He came in with arrogance and tried to pull the wool over their eyes and just tried to lie to them using false science, which is funny because that's exactly what Graham does. Flint, mad respect for Flint Dibble. Great episode, and I highly recommend you check out Flint Dibble if you are into pseudoarchaeology. So obviously this was pure satire, but this is an actual playbook that grifters and charlatans will use to push their grift. And hopefully this was eye-opening to see how easy it is to actually come up with something like this. And especially with AI, all you have to do is go into ChatGPT, and if you have the prompt of the 1973 diet, just have them generate an ebook. And this whole thing took me less than an afternoon. And so in less than an afternoon, you can have the cover of the book, the ebook written, and all promotions ready, because then you can just use AI to come up with social media content and all that. Now that you've had a peek inside the playbook and you have the tools necessary to kind of arm yourself against these grifts and charlatans and V-shreds, then hopefully you are able to spot these and sniff these out sooner so that way you don't fall for it. Because the truth is, if you're trying to lose weight, the answer is right in front of you. You know what to do. Set a daily movement goal, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. Do something, dealer's choice, whatever it is. Plug in, put on an episode of your favorite anime. Right now I'm watching the 2020 reboot of Digimon, and do some body weight movement in that. Go for a walk while listening to a podcast. Go to the gym a couple times a week. You don't have to, but you can. Get up, go shopping, cook, clean, do some chores, anything within that 30 minutes that gets you up and moving in a way where you would normally be sitting on the couch. That's 30 minutes of extra movement that you're not normally getting each day. That's number one. Be mindful of what you're eating. Eat more whole foods than processed foods, but still allow yourself some indulgences here or there, your ice creams, cookies, cakes, pizzas. You can have all those and lose weight. Just try to have a majority of your calories come from whole foods. If you're like me and most gamers, that's harder to do in the beginning, so just work on nudging the needle. Having a side of broccoli smothered in cheese is a step in the right direction versus fries. And so do stuff like that, small daily actions that move the needle forward. And if you're able to increase movement, increase the amount of whole foods that you eat, and tune up your sleep, because us gamers, we love staying up late gaming. If you're able to do those three things in a very simple, easy way, you can lose a dramatic amount of weight. I've lost over 60 pounds doing stuff very similar to that. And if you are interested in losing weight, but you're not sure where to turn, join our free Discord. We have a lot of free resources in there, including the 1-year beginner's handbook. So if you're just starting off on a fitness journey, you're not sure where to start, I created an entire year-long guide that you can use as your player's handbook to get you started, get you moving, and get you building momentum. If you are interested in exploring what online coaching looks like, you can DM me on Discord or find me on Instagram. You can DM me on Instagram. All links will be in the description. Thank you so much. Hopefully this was eye-opening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.